Jack Miller stood at the window of the Galactic Confederation station, watching ships from 32 alien species glide past like bright fish in a cosmic sea. Earth had joined the Confederation only 20 years ago. Humans were still new to the stars. "Commander Miller, the council meeting begins in 5 minutes," said his AI assistant through his earpiece. Jack straightened his blue Earth Force uniform and took a deep breath. As Earth's military liaison to the Confederate Council, he attended all security meetings. Most days, he sat quietly while older species discussed matters they deemed beyond human understanding. The circular council chamber buzzed with alien voices. Some spoke in chittering clicks, others in low rumbles that vibrated the floor. Jack took his seat at the table, nodding politely to his neighbors, a 6-limbed Krell diplomat and a floating Medusan observer. "The humans are always so punctual," the Krell said, eyes blinking in what Jack had learned was amusement. Such an earnest young species. Jack smiled politely. He was used to being treated like a child at these meetings. Humans had mastered faster than light travel only 40 years ago. Many species here had been crossing the stars when humans were still figuring out agriculture. The council president, a tall Archon with silvery skin, called the meeting to order. "We face growing concerns along the border with the Dorvan Empire. 3 outposts have reported unusual military movements." Jack listened carefully. The Dorvans were a warrior culture that had refused to join the Confederation. Tensions had been rising for months. As the meeting progressed, Jack noticed something strange. The Vrelexi delegation, insectoid beings known for their calm logic, seemed unusually tense when looking in his direction. Their antennae twitched nervously whenever he spoke. "Perhaps we should increase patrols," Jack suggested during a discussion about border security. "Earth could contribute additional ships tow." "That won't be necessary," interrupted a Tellarate representative quickly. "Human vessels are not well suited for such missions." Jack frowned. Earth's ships weren't the most advanced, but they were reliable and well-armed. This wasn't the first time his offers had been dismissed without real consideration. After the meeting, Jack was gathering his notes when an ancient Xanthari diplomat approached. The Xanthari were one of the oldest species in the Confederation, with pale blue skin that had turned almost white with age. "Commander Miller," the Xanthari said quietly, "I was impressed by your suggestions today." "Thank you," Jack replied, surprised by the rare compliment. The old alien leaned closer. "Have you ever wondered why so many species seem uncomfortable around humans?" Jack paused. "I assumed it's because we're newcomers." The Xanthari made a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Your kind slumbers, but the universe remembers." "I don't understand," Jack said, confused. "Perhaps that is for the best." The Xanthari touched Jack's shoulder briefly. "But remember my words when the time comes." Before Jack could ask more, the alien glided away, leaving him puzzled. That night, Jack reviewed Confederate military records. He had noticed discrepancies before. Earth's military capabilities were consistently underestimated in official documents. Their weapons were listed as less powerful than they actually were. Their tactical abilities were described as developing. Jack had assumed these were clerical errors. Now he wasn't so sure. His computer chimed with a message from Susan Hayes, a xenohistorian aboard the Earth vessel U.S. Horizon. The message was brief. "Found something strange in alien historical texts. References to a warrior species from our sector. Need to talk." Jack sent a quick reply agreeing to a call the next day, then returned to his window overlooking the station. Ships moved peacefully through the void, but the Xanthari's words echoed in his mind. "Your kind slumbers, but the universe remembers." Outside, distant stars twinkled like eyes watching Earth. Waiting. Lieutenant Susan Hayes hunched over her tablet on the bridge of the U.S. Horizon. The ship hummed quietly around her as it traveled through space. For the past week, she had barely slept, too fascinated by her discovery. "Still reading those old alien stories?" Captain Eric Grant asked as he walked by. His voice was friendly but tired. Susan nodded. "These aren't just stories, sir. They're historical records from at least 12 different species, all mentioning the same thing. And what's that? The captain leaned against the wall, curious despite his fatigue. A warrior race that matched our description. Bipedal, 2 arms, similar facial features. Susan swiped through images of ancient texts. But the strange part is, these records are from 50,000 years ago. Humans weren't supposed to be in space then. The captain frowned. That can't be right. Their conversation was interrupted by a blinking light on the command console. Incoming message, Captain, called out the communications officer. Priority 1 from command. Captain Grant straightened. Put it through. The screen lit up with a formal military order. The Horizon was to change course immediately to investigate a distress signal from Proxima, the closest exoplanet to Earth. An archaeological team there had made an urgent discovery. Looks like your ancient history might have to wait, Grant told Susan. Then he paused. Actually, you should come along on the away team. Your expertise might be useful. 20 hours later, Susan stood in a massive underground chamber on Proxima, staring at wall carvings that made her blood run cold. The cave was part of ruins left by an extinct civilization that had once lived on the planet. These are at least 40,000 years old, explained Dr. Alan Foster, the lead archaeologist who had sent the distress call. He was a thin man with glasses who kept wiping dust from his hands onto his pants. We found them yesterday when we broke through to this lower chamber. The walls showed scenes of war, and the warriors bringing destruction were unmistakably human. That's impossible, Captain Grant whispered, shining his light on the carvings. Humans weren't even building cities 40,000 years ago, let alone spaceships. Look at this, Susan said, pointing to one carving. It showed the human-like warriors standing over defeated enemies, planets burning in the background. They're depicted as conquerors. That's why I called you, Foster said nervously. I found similar references in ruins on 3 other worlds, all showing these human warriors, always feared, always destroying. There's more, Susan added. In my research, I found legends from multiple species about beings they call the Sleeping Ones, mighty warriors who disappeared long ago but would someday return. Their discussion was cut short by an urgent call from the Horizon. Captain, we're receiving an emergency broadcast from the Confederation. The Confederate outpost has been attacked by Dorvan forces. The cave seemed to grow colder. The Dorvans had finally made their move. Back on the Horizon, they watched the emergency council session through a secure channel. The Confederation representatives argued loudly about how to respond. We must show strength, insisted a Krell diplomat. No, we should negotiate, countered others. The Dorvans are too powerful to challenge directly. As the aliens debated, Susan noticed how many of them glanced nervously at the human representative on their screens. Their fears seemed deeper than the current crisis warranted. They know something, she whispered to Captain Grant. Something about us they're not telling. On her tablet, Susan pulled up an image she translated from an ancient Medusan text. Pray to your gods that the human warriors never wake from their long sleep, for when they rise again, the stars themselves will tremble. On Earth, Laura Russell wiped sweat from her forehead as she carefully brushed dirt from a bone fragment. The underground dig site in Kenya had revealed something unexpected, something impossible. Dr. Russell, you need to see this. Her assistant held up a scanner with trembling hands. Laura looked at the DNA results and frowned. The ancient human remains they had found showed clear signs of genetic engineering. Modifications that shouldn't have been possible 100,000 years ago. This can't be right, she muttered, but deep down, she knew the equipment wasn't wrong. Run it again. Thousands of miles away in Washington, military analyst Kevin Chen stared at his computer screen. He had been comparing ancient human battle tactics with those used by species across the galaxy. The similarities were too strong to be coincidence. Roman legion formations matched those used by the Krell. Mongol cavalry strategies were nearly identical to Vrelexi attack patterns. Human military history seemed to have influenced species that humans had only met 20 years ago. Or maybe, Chen thought with growing unease, it was the other way around. His secure line beeped. It was Commander Miller from the Confederation Station. Chen, I need everything you have on tactical parallels between humans and other species, Miller said without greeting. His face looked tense. I was just working on that, Chen replied. There's something weird going on. How could aliens be using strategies developed on Earth thousands of years ago? What if they weren't developed on Earth? Miller asked quietly. On the U.S. horizon, Susan Hayes and Alan Foster had barely slept for 3 days. They had been analyzing data from the Proxima ruins and comparing it with Susan's research. Look at these brain scans, Foster said, pointing to his screen. It showed neural patterns from various alien species when shown images of humans. There's activity in their fear centers. Not just learned fear, instinctual fear hardwired into their biology. Like how mice fear cats even if they've never seen one before. Susan nodded. They're programmed to fear us. Foster looked uncomfortable. But why would evolution give them a specific fear of humans if we've only been in space for a few decades? Susan's eyes widened as the pieces clicked together. What if we weren't always as we are now? What if humans were once something else? Something so terrifying that fear of us was permanently coded into alien DNA. You mean we were engineered too? Foster asked. Modified to be less than what we were. Put to sleep, Susan whispered, just like in the legends. Back at the Confederation Station, Jack Miller cornered the ancient Xanthari diplomat in a quiet corridor. Tell me what you know about humans, Jack demanded. No more riddles. The old alien looked at him with sad eyes. Your kind ruled the stars once, not as peaceful explorers, but as warriors without equal. Your anger was endless, your skill in battle unmatched. Jack felt cold. That's not possible. After the Great War, the remaining species faced a choice: exterminate humanity or find another way. The Xanthari's voice grew softer. Our ancestors chose mercy. They modified your species, dampened your abilities, reset your civilization. They hoped you might evolve differently given a second chance. Before Jack could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. On screens everywhere, the same message flashed. Dorgan forces had attacked 3 Confederate worlds without warning. An emergency council meeting was called immediately. Earth's request for military aid was met with delays and excuses from their supposed allies. We need time to consider the strategic implications, the Archean president said smoothly. Jack looked around the table and suddenly understood. They weren't delaying because they didn't want to help. They were delaying because they were afraid of what might happen if humans went to war. The message from the Dorvan Empire arrived at all Confederate worlds at the same time. Their demands were simple and terrifying. Earth must be surrendered to Dorvan custody. All humans throughout Confederate space must be handed over for containment. This is madness, Jack Miller said, standing before the Confederate Council. Earth has done nothing to provoke this ultimatum. The council chamber was unusually quiet. Many representatives avoided looking at him. Perhaps, said the Archean president carefully, we should consider what the Dorvans are asking. For the greater peace of the Confederation. Jack stared in disbelief. You're actually considering this, sacrificing Earth to avoid conflict. One by one, alien representatives began to make excuses. Earth is just one world, said the Krell diplomat. The Dorvans are too powerful to challenge directly, added another. Sometimes the needs of many outweigh the needs of few, the Medusan observer noted. Jack looked around the table and saw what Susan Hayes had discovered. Fear, not just political caution, but deep, instinctual fear. I need to contact Earth immediately, he said, leaving the chamber. In his private quarters, Jack discovered his communications had been restricted. He was being contained. Using an emergency protocol, he sent a short encrypted message to military command on Earth. Beat Hirai Iti. Porg. Air. Meanwhile, the U.S. horizon was racing back from Proxima when Captain Grant received an alert. Dwarven ships approaching from Sector 7. The sensor officer called out. "Battle stations," Grant ordered. "Shields up." The first shots came without warning. The horizon rocked violently as Dwarven weapons tore into its shields. "Return fire," Grant shouted. In the chaos that followed, something strange happened. Crew members who had never seen combat before moved with unexpected precision. Gunners made impossible shots. Engineers repaired systems with extraordinary speed. "How did you know to reroute power through the secondary grid?" Grant asked a young technician. The man looked confused. "I don't know. I just knew." When the battle ended, the horizon had somehow survived. 3 Dwarven ships had not. "That should have been impossible," Foster said quietly to Susan. "We were outnumbered and outgunned." Susan looked at the crew around them. "Something's happening to us." Back on Earth, President Nicole Barnes faced her Security Council. The room was tense as she studied the reports before her. "Confederation allies are withdrawing support," she said. "And Commander Miller's message confirms it. We're on our own." Military Chief Paul Davis nodded grimly. "Dwarven ships will reach our solar system in 3 days. We've mobilized every vessel we have, but we're outnumbered 20 to 1. "What about the research from Dr. Russell and Kevin Chen?" the president asked. "It confirms what we feared," said a gray-haired scientist. "Humans appear to have been genetically modified in our distant past. Certain gene sequences were deliberately suppressed." "And now?" Barnes asked. "Now those sequences are showing signs of reactivation. We're seeing increased strength, reflexes, and cognitive abilities in military personnel under stress. It's as if we're waking up," Barnes finished. On the Confederation station, Jack Miller had been placed under protective custody. Alone in his quarters, he examined Confederate records he had secretly downloaded. For years, humanity's true capabilities had been hidden. Earth's military strength had been deliberately underrepresented in all official documents. Looking at star charts, Jack suddenly saw patterns he had never noticed before. Battle strategies formed in his mind with perfect clarity. He understood exactly how to defeat forces 10 times his size. The knowledge felt both new and ancient, like a language he had always known but forgotten. Outside his window, ships began to move. The Confederation was withdrawing from Earth's sector, leaving humanity to face the Dwarven fleet alone. Jack Miller smiled. Let them come. The first Dwarven ships entered Earth's solar system near Neptune. Humanity's defense fleet waited in formation, vastly outnumbered. On the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Unity, Admiral Frank Warren watched the enemy approach. "All ships hold position," he ordered calmly. Despite the overwhelming odds, he felt strangely confident. The Dwarven commander's face appeared on the main screen. His scaled skin was a dark purple, his yellow eyes cold. "Surrender now," the Dwarven said, "or be destroyed." Admiral Warren smiled. "We decline your offer." The battle began instantly. Dwarven ships moved with practiced precision, firing energy weapons that could tear through most shields. But something unexpected happened as the first shots were fired. Human pilots reacted with impossible speed. Gunners made shots that should have been beyond their ability. Engineers found ways to strengthen shields that hadn't existed before. On the Unity, Admiral Warren felt something awaken in his mind. Battle plans formed with perfect clarity. He saw weaknesses in Dwarven formations that shouldn't have been visible. "Squadron 3, attack pattern Delta," he ordered. "Squadrons 1 and 5, execute flanking maneuver Epsilon." His officers looked confused. These were not standard Earth Force tactics. "Sir," his second-in-command began, "we don't have those." "Yes, we do," Warren interrupted. "We always have. We just forgot." Across the fleet, human soldiers experienced similar awakenings. Physical strength increased. Reaction times shortened. Combat instincts emerged that had been buried deep in their DNA. Dr. Olivia Ward monitored the changes from Earth's military headquarters. "It's happening faster than we predicted," she told President Barnes. "The dormant gene sequences are activating under combat stress." On her screens, human vital signs showed impossible readings. Brain activity had doubled. Muscle density was increasing. Neural pathways were forming that didn't exist in normal human physiology. "Is it happening to everyone?" Barnes asked. "No, mainly military personnel in active combat. But it's spreading." In space, the outnumbered Earth fleet was not just surviving, it was winning. Dorgan ships that should have easily destroyed them were being outmaneuvered and outfought. Captain Eric Grant of the U.S. Horizon found himself executing maneuvers he had never learned. His hands moved across controls with perfect confidence. "Target their power distribution node," he ordered. Precise coordinates sent to weapons. The shot struck the exact point where the Dorvan dreadnought's shields were weakest. The massive enemy ship exploded in a blinding flash. "How did you know that would work?" his tactical officer asked in amazement. Grant shook his head. "I just knew." On the Confederation station, Jack Miller broke free from his guards with surprising ease. His body moved with speed and strength he had never possessed. The Xanthari diplomat was waiting for him at a small ship docked in a hidden bay. "You are awakening," the ancient alien said. "All of your kind are." "What's happening to us?" Jack asked. "You are remembering what you were made to be," the Xanthari replied. "The greatest warriors the galaxy has ever known." As their ship raced toward Earth, Jack experienced flashes of memories that weren't his own. Battles fought thousands of years ago. Planets conquered. Enemies defeated. These weren't dreams or visions. They were memories stored in his genes, finally unlocked. Across the galaxy, alien observers watched the battle in Earth's solar system with growing horror. The sleeping giants were stirring. "We should have destroyed them when we had the chance," a Krell elder said to the council. The Archean president shook his head. "We tried once before. We failed. That's why we had to put them to sleep." "And now?" a frightened voice asked. "Now we pray," the Archean whispered. "Pray they remember mercy along with war." News of the Earth fleet's unexpected victory spread quickly. The Dorvan Empire, shocked by their losses, responded with rage. Their supreme commander ordered their main battle fleet to Earth. 500 warships, the largest force assembled in a century. "We will burn their world to ash," the Dorvan leader told his generals, before they fully wake. On Earth, the changes accelerated. Soldiers who had never seen combat found themselves able to disassemble and reassemble weapons they had never touched. Pilots instinctively understood flight systems that engineers had spent years developing. Kevin Chen watched military personnel training at a base outside Washington. Men and women moved in perfect coordination, like dancers who had practiced together for years. Yet these soldiers had met only days ago. "It's spreading," Chen told President Barnes during an emergency meeting. "Not just combat skills. Knowledge is emerging too. Engineers are designing weapons that shouldn't be possible with our technology." Susan Hayes and Alan Foster arrived on Earth after their journey from Proxima. They went straight to a secure facility where Laura Russell waited with her archaeological findings. "I've completed the DNA analysis," Laura explained, showing them complex genetic charts. "Humans weren't just modified once. We were engineered twice. First to be warriors, then to forget we were warriors." Susan nodded. "That matches what we found. The texts suggest humans were created as super soldiers during an ancient galactic war over 100,000 years ago." "But why make us forget?" Foster asked. "Because we won," Jack Miller said, entering the room with the Xanthari diplomat. Despite the chaos of recent days, Jack looked calmer than ever, more focused. "We won too well." The old Xanthari nodded sadly. "The species that created you as weapons could not control you. You exceeded their design. When the war ended, you continued fighting. Nothing could stop you. So instead of killing us, they changed us," Laura finished. "Dampened our abilities and reset our civilization. Yes, the Xanthari said, and place caretakers to watch over you. My ancestors were among them. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. A soldier rushed in, his movements precise and controlled in a way that seemed inhuman. The Dorvans have committed their entire battle fleet, he reported. 500 ships approaching. Estimated arrival in 24 hours. Our fleet can't stop that many, Chen said grimly. Jack Miller looked at each of them calmly. Yes, we can. In space, several Confederate species had broken their alliance with the Dorvans. They feared the awakening humans more than Dorvan reprisals. We have seen what humans become in war, a Krell admiral told his government. We cannot stand against that and survive. The Medusan Council went further. We offer immediate alliance with Earth, they announced. Better to have the humans as friends than enemies. On Earth, volunteers flooded military recruitment centers. People who had never considered military service felt a strange calling. Many reported dreams of battles among the stars, of knowledge they shouldn't possess. Dr. Olivia Ward monitored the changes with a mixture of wonder and fear. It's like thousands of years of evolution happening in days, she told her team. Their bodies are literally rewriting themselves. In a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Warren met with his newly awakened officers. They no longer needed computers to plan battle strategy. The knowledge was in their blood. The Dorvans think their numbers will overwhelm us, Warren said, his eyes gleaming with ancient knowledge. They don't understand what we are becoming. Around the table, men and women nodded. Their posture had changed. They held themselves like warriors born, not made. When they spoke, their voices carried the weight of genetic memory spanning millennia. Jack Miller joined them, bringing the Xanthari diplomat. The ancient alien looked at the assembled humans with a mixture of awe and terror. The gods of war are stirring, the Xanthari whispered. Heaven help those who woke them. The Dorvan battle fleet filled Earth's long-range sensors like a storm of metal. 500 warships moved in perfect formation, their weapons primed to reduce humanity to ashes. Earth's defenders watched and waited. Something had changed in them during the past days. They no longer felt fear. In military bases across the planet, soldiers accessed memories that weren't their own. Engineers built weapons designed millennia ago. Pilots practiced maneuvers no human had ever flown before today. Laura Russell stood in a hidden chamber deep beneath the Sahara Desert. Her archaeological team had found it just hours ago, following coordinates that had appeared in her mind like a half-remembered dream. This can't be possible, she whispered, staring at the vast underground hangar. It stretched for miles, filled with ships and weapons of designs far beyond current human technology. The dust covering everything suggested it had remained undisturbed for thousands of years. It's been waiting for us, said a soldier beside her, waiting for us to remember. Alan Foster made a similar discovery beneath the Pacific Ocean. A massive defensive array lay hidden in the ocean floor, powered down but intact. As he studied the controls, knowledge flowed into his mind. I can activate this, he told his team, hands moving across panels that lit up at his touch. I know how it works. In Washington, Kevin Chen presented President Barnes with designs for weapons that had come to him in flashes of genetic memory. These use principles of physics we've only begun to understand, he explained. But I know they'll work. We all do. All across Earth, humanity's dormant potential continued to manifest. People moved with new purpose, filled with knowledge they had never learned but somehow remembered. They were becoming what they had once been, what they had been made to be. Susan Hayes studied the ancient texts with fresh understanding. We weren't just soldiers, she told Jack Miller. We were guardians. We were made to protect the galaxy, not just conquer it. Jack nodded. The memories flowing through him showed both sides of humanity's warrior past. The glory of battle and the horror of unbridled conquest. We went too far, he said quietly. That's why they put us to sleep. We forgot our purpose and became monsters. The Xanthari diplomat watched them with ancient eyes. The question now is, what will you become this time? In space, the Earth fleet prepared for battle. Though outnumbered 10 to 1, they moved with absolute confidence. Captain Grant's U.S. Horizon had been modified with weapons he had designed from memory. Weapons that shouldn't have been possible with Earth's technology. "All ships report ready," his communications officer announced. Grant nodded. He could feel the changes in himself and his crew. They were faster, stronger, more focused. But most importantly, they remembered. Knowledge buried in their DNA for millennium had awakened. "Begin formation Alpha," he ordered. The fleet moved in patterns that confused Dwarven sensors. Tactics developed when humans had ruled the stars. On Earth, Foster activated the ancient defense network. Massive weapons rose from oceans, mountains, and deserts worldwide, placed there eons ago and waiting for human hands to wake them. Laura Russell powered up the ships found beneath the desert. They rose through hidden doors in the sand, their engines humming with energy that had waited millennia to be released. President Barnes watched from the command center as humanity's true strength revealed itself. "We were never weak," she whispered. "We were sleeping." The Dwarven fleet entered Earth's solar system, weapons charge. Their commander looked at the small human fleet with contempt. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Show no mercy." As the first shots fired, Admiral Warren smiled. Behind him, Earth's defenders stood tall, their eyes gleaming with the memory of 1,000 victories. "Remember who we are," Warren told his fleet. "Remember what we were made for." The battle for Earth began. The void of space lit up with weapons fire as the battle began. The massive Dwarven fleet fired with everything they had, expecting to tear through Earth's defenses in minutes. Instead, their shots met shields far stronger than should have been possible. The human fleet moved in patterns that seemed to anticipate every Dwarven attack before it happened. "Impossible," the Dwarven commander hissed as reports of losses began to flood in. "They are only humans." But they weren't just humans anymore. They were what humans had been created to be. Perfect warriors with battle knowledge spanning thousands of years. The ancient defense network that Foster had activated fired beams of energy that cut through Dwarven ships like they were made of paper. Ships that Laura Russell had found beneath the desert danced through enemy formations, their technology far beyond anything seen in the current age. Captain Grant executed a maneuver that split the Dwarven fleet in two, creating a gap that Earth ships exploited ruthlessly. His hands moved across the controls with absolute certainty, guided by memories older than human civilization. "They're breaking formation," Grant's tactical officer reported, her eyes gleaming with the same awakened knowledge that filled them all. On Earth, President Barnes watched the battle unfold on massive screens. What should have been a hopeless last stand had become something else entirely, a demonstration of power that would change the galaxy forever. "We need to be careful," she said quietly to her advisors. "We're remembering how to fight. We need to remember why we fought." News of the battle spread across the galaxy at light speed. On dozens of worlds, alien leaders watched with growing horror as the Dwarven fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in known space, was being systematically destroyed by the humans they had dismissed as weak newcomers. Several Dwarven colony worlds immediately sent messages of surrender to Earth. They had seen enough. Better to surrender than face what humans had become. The Confederation Council met in emergency session. The Archean president looked older than ever as he addressed the frightened representatives. "The warriors have returned," he said simply, as the ancient texts warned they would. In the battle above Earth, Jack Miller commanded a ship he had never seen before today, but knew how to fly perfectly. The knowledge felt right in his mind, like remembering how to ride a bicycle after years away. "The Dwarven flagship is retreating," his sensor officer reported. "Their fleet is in full withdrawal." The battle had lasted less than 6 hours. Nearly 400 Dwarven ships had been destroyed. Earth had lost only 12. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. As the adrenaline of combat faded, Miller felt the full weight of the memories that had awakened within him. He saw the glory of humanity's past, and the horror. the planets they had conquered, the species they had dominated, the reason they had been put to sleep. He wasn't the only one. Across Earth's fleet, fully awakened humans faced the same realization. They had been gods of war once. Unstoppable, unmerciful. 3 days later, the Confederation Council chamber was silent as Jack Miller entered. With him came Admiral Warren, Captain Grant, President Barnes, and the others who had led humanity's defense. They moved with the fluid grace of born warriors, their eyes holding knowledge from before recorded history. The alien representatives watched them with undisguised fear. The Dwarven Empire has surrendered unconditionally, Miller announced. Their threat is ended. And what will humanity do now? The Archon president asked carefully. Now that you have remembered what you were. Miller looked at his fellow humans. They had all seen the memories, the conquests, the destruction, the reason they had been forced to forget. We remember everything now, Miller said. Not just how to fight, but why we were created. We were meant to be guardians, not conquerors. President Barnes stepped forward. Humanity chooses a new path. We will protect, not destroy. We will defend, not conquer. The Xanthari diplomat, watching from the side of the chamber, bowed his ancient head. Then the gamble worked. You were given a second chance, and you chose differently. Miller nodded. Tell the galaxy they need not fear the gods of war. We are awake, and we remember our purpose at last.